Well, as I recall, it was May of 1978. We had a real cold snap come through late in the spring, and so we were building a fire in the old wood frame farmhouse that my sister was leasing. And I gathered up an armful of firewood to walk across the living room, and a copperhead snake jumped out of it. Fortunately, it jumped away from me instead of down my shirt. And so I killed the copperhead on the living room floor, and my sister had two boys, ages about 4 and about 8 or 9, and she was concerned about her boys getting snake bit. So she said, when the weather warms up, I want you and Eddie to go see if you can kill any snakes that are around, And so we started out around the house, turning over logs and stuff, and we didn't really see any snakes around the house. And we continued, and we went up the driveway, and we noticed the creek. And we just had never been up the creek, didn't know where it went, so we just headed that way and went up the creek, and apparently passed the property boundary markers on the way because we're down in the ravine and they're up on grade. And at some point I noticed the terrain change color and texture, and as I was climbing up a little elevation change, a piece broke off in my hand. It looked like rock, but it was light and porous, and I surmised that it must be bone. As I looked around both sides of the ravine, I noticed this bone projecting from the sides of the ravine. I went and found a piece that looked like a sphere that looked like the back of a human skull. So I thought that possibly I was in an Indian burial ground. I went and excavated that piece by hand, and it turned out to be a knee joint. That's one of the pieces I took to David and his associate at Strecker Museum.
Routine day, bones came in all the time for us to identify. So when Paul and Eddie came in, they had this large bone, too big for a bison, too fossilized for a cow. So mammoth would have been the only diagnosis based on what all we had done over the years here around the area.
I just had a couple of pieces in my hands. Well, these guys are museum curators. They see this stuff all the time. So they weren't particularly impressed with what I brought them. They say, well, these building excavations, we find this stuff all the time. And I said, well, do you think you're going to find something of the magnitude that I saw down there on the creek? And he said, well, do you think you have a whole animal? And I said, I wouldn't be surprised if there are not several whole animals.
And I said, really? So we made an arrangement to go and take a look at it.
I could see in their eyes that they were definitely more excited looking at it in person than they were when I spoke to them.
I saw several bones. They had some on their porch in a wash tub, and they had some others there at the house. And so I got really excited. And then we made our way down the creek, up the creek really, and bones sticking out all over. So this was a significant site. We went out and dug everywhere, every chance we got. And then we quit. It got so tedious and with little support that we quit digging in about 1980, the end of 80, first part of 81. We were discouraged. And that was going to be the end of it. We had forgotten about it until Calvin Smith came as director of the Strecker Museum, and I just happened to mention it to him. Well, he got very excited. So the impact was reversed, basically. At the beginning, it was interesting, fun to dig, and then we got tired of it. And then when Calvin came, he reinstituted the dig, and then things got really exciting and was an impact from then on. One of the neat things was the partnership that was developed among Baylor, City of Waco, and the Park Service. Early on, we had tried to interest Texas Parks and Wildlife. We had tried to interest National Geographic and several other entities in helping out here, but didn't get very far. So when the opportunity arose to partner with the City of Waco and then keep Baylor in the loop as far as the research end of it and exhibit end of it, that was exciting. And then when the Park Service finally came on board after some stumbles and some influences up in Washington, that was ideal. a three-way partnership, and then the Mammoth Foundation would make it a four-way partnership. So you can't beat that. That you've got support all the way around there: federal, city, university, and then a foundation, public support. So that's perfect. There's a lot of folks that deserve thanks. In fact, Calvin has a list of 33 different folks. But FM and Gloria Young were so instrumental in the financial end of things. We didn't have any money to work with, and as we dug, and Calvin had to go get money wherever he could, Cooper Foundation, others. But FM and Gloria Young stepped up and put the finances, behind it, and got other people to help with financing. And that was so important to keep this thing going, keep it moving, and so forth. So a lot of people have contributed to this thing being here now. Ralph Vinson put in thousands of hours out here on his own time, hot and cold, summer, winter. He moved tons of dirt and kept the thing going. And then the second person, I really can't differentiate, but Calvin Smith, because of his background in archaeology and his belief that there might be something special out here, he kept the thing going. As I said, we had quit, and we were probably not going to do anything else with it, but he reinstituted everything and kept it going. So that was important.
Well, the impact this has had on my life is just people that I've never known, that I don't know at all, recognize me and know who I am. Sometimes people hear my name, even out of state, people have heard my name and known who I was, and it's kind of shocking and humbling at the same time,
One of the scariest things to me is, Paul brought that bone to us. They could have just thrown it back in the ditch. We came out here and started working. We got discouraged and quit, and the project could have ended right there. And that is so scary that this never would have happened if a couple of little things, hadn't changed. This would have washed away, and that would have been the end of it. And look what we have today because of some interest by Paul Barron and Eddie Buffkin and Calvin Smith coming on board and reinstituting the project. There wouldn't be anything. The future of the Mammoth site, I would like to see all of the skeletal remains cast in fiberglass and put back so that a visitor gets an impact of the total look of the site. What's there is impressive, but I would like to see it come back this direction and put in the original stuff that we'd taken out by 1990. The other thing is I'd like to see the site continued north, because we found remains of several more mammoths through some core borings and some other digging, and so we know there's some more to the north. So I'd like to see those two things done, but I want it to remain educational. I want the paleontologist on site to really help the public understand what paleontology is and fossil work and preservation and so forth. I think that's very important, the educational end of it, as well as the research end.
Well, I would like for them to continue to add attractions to the property. I would like for it to be, it is very well renowned as it is, but I would like for it to be known farther and wider than it is. I would like for it to be an economic boon to my hometown, to my area, and also to be an educational resource for generations of children, to come.